Right. Well, thanks very much for coming. If you don't know, this is part of the SPRAWL, the BA Photography from the Arts University of Bournemouth. We're going to have a panel discussion on after art school, basically. I have a pretty stellar cast here. I'm quite excited to say. In this corner, the red corner, we've got Lucy Soutter, who's a writer who's quite recently published a book called Why Art Photography. She also teaches at the Royal College. We've got Eva Stenram, Eva Stenram.
That's fine.
Oh. We had a discussion about this earlier. I'll get it right. Eva Stenram, who's a photographer, artist. Would you call yourself an artist, a photographer?
Usually an artist.
Artist, yes.
Yeah,
We'll get into that later. Yes.
Yeah.
Eva's internationally renowned, actually. So she's shown around the world, and most recently Siobhan
Davies in London.
Siobhan Davies Dance Studio in London. And on my left-hand side, I've got David Hoyland, who runs 17 Gallery in Kings Road. When did you start 17?
2005.
2005. Okay, so quite impressive. The first thing I want to ask is, this is a degree show, and a lot of you are probably thinking, well, those of you who are graduating this year or going to graduate next year, you're thinking about MAs, and it's quite a big subject at the minute because, well, essentially because of money. And Lucy, you studied in America, so that was taken for granted, wasn't it? But for us, it's quite a big issue. It's a lot more debt to take on. And I just wanted to ask each of our panelists how important we felt that would be. So I'm going to start with you, Lucy, given that your experience of the American system.
Well, one of the things, if you do a statistical analysis of what percentage of successful art photographers operating out there have MAs, it's an incredibly high percentage. It's 98% or something, which isn't to say it can't be done without an MA. It certainly can, but the MA is the well-trodden path. Of course, if you do an MA, it's not necessarily going to get you anywhere. It's no guarantee, but it is a step. But one of the things that I would say as someone who teaches on an MA is to be incredibly strategic about at what point in your career you choose to do it, if you are going to do it. Because the thing about the MA is that I would say that it's less about what you learn per se than who you meet and the kinds of stimulation, the kind of lift-off that it gives your career. So one of the things that's really important is not to do it when you're still sort of semi-formed and trying to figure out who you want to be and what you want to do. Because if you can do some of that while you're not paying into the cash register of some incredibly expensive college, if you can arrive having spent a couple of years working in other ways, saving up money, thinking about what you want to do, it's going to get you much further. Certainly at the Royal College, the demographic of the MA students has changed radically over the last few years. When I first started working there 8 years ago, I would say the majority of MA students, and Eva may correct me here, but I seem to remember that it used to be that more than half of the students were coming straight off of BAs and were still at a very sort of beginning stage of their artistic inquiry. But now we're getting students arriving who are much more polished. Some of them have MAs already from MA programs in other countries. Really? But they do. And they're signing up for more. A lot of them are already exhibiting internationally. They have to do things like take a few weeks out to fill their gallery's stall for the Frieze Fair, or take a few weeks out for their opening in Havana, or take a few weeks out to shoot the Gucci campaign. I mean, literally, I'm not making these examples up. So I guess my top tip would be, if you're interested in doing an MA, it's a really good idea to spend a couple of years building up to it and really thinking about what you want to get out of it. So you can choose the best place for you, save up the money, think about where you're going to live, how you're going to live, and where you want it to take you. Because if you can do it in a really strategic way, it can be an incredibly valuable qualification and network builder and way to develop your work. But I mean, I know I did my MAs almost straight out of university, and I squandered quite a lot of it because I just wasn't in a position to be that strategic.
And what was your experience at the end of it? Were you strategic?
You have to me?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I think I waited, 2 years after my BA to go on to my MA, and I could have really waited a few more years, I think, although I might have hit the point where I was still, when I went and did my MA, I still didn't have to pay, so I might have done it because soon it was going to start being expensive too.
What effect would that have had on you if you knew you had to, what's the Royal College fees, 27,000?
No, that's for international students. For home students, it's $9,000, but every home student gets a bursary of $3,000, so it's $6,000. So actually, on paper, it's the most expensive, but with the bursary, it's not the most expensive.
Okay.
Yeah. But I mean, I have to say, just waiting 2 years was incredibly good for the work that I was doing. I'd been on a BA course in fine art, and I found that at the end of my BA course, I was working more and more within photography, loosely photography. And so when I graduated from my BA course, I continued working with images and pictures. So that led me to apply for an MA in photography rather than an MA in fine art. So it kind of shifted my work in a certain direction, having that time to explore what I really wanted to do. Right. So for me that was a really fruitful time. And also for me it was essential to know, and this is really important too, that if you're going to be spending all that money on an MA, you really want to know that you're going to be able to do your work when you're out of an institution. So if you graduate and you find that you're not making your work, then there's really no point in spending that money on an MA. I would say you really need to know that this is important enough for you to continue making the work. Yeah.
Dave, double experience here. You, you didn't do anything. You went. Okay, you can tell me about your experience. There's double thing I'd like to ask you: why you didn't do that, and the second one, after you've gone for that, could you tell me what value you think an MA is for, say, for example, artists that you do a tat and worked with?
Well, I didn't do an MA because I just bottled it. I thought it was really good. You know, I thought that this work, I'm making this work, it's great, whatever. I felt confident about it. And when I didn't get in the first time, and all my friends got into, my peer group was SPRAWL College, SPRAWL Academy, Goldsmiths, and fundamentally, I just didn't have the nerve to persist. So the Royal Academy wants you to apply 3 times before they'll let you in.
It's an interesting, that's an absolutely fascinating comment actually. This notion of having some sense of persistence on its own.
No. So I didn't have the tenacity and persistence that's required. I mean, just because it doesn't happen the first time doesn't mean that it isn't going to happen. I mean, and really that process of resistance is really good for you. I mean, I don't know how you define success, I don't know how you define everyone's objectives in their own art practice are obviously different. But the people who tend to succeed are the people who don't stop. And that's it. Everyone is terrible at making art at some point. Yeah. And if you just don't stop, it's that journey, that growth. Everyone's rubbish. You know what I mean? Everyone makes bad work. And it's so how you choose to navigate these series of opportunities or resistances. The role of the MA is also, as we're talking now about it, it's super contentious with financial issues that are involved in it now. When you combine that with London and the financial issues that are brought on by the lack of space now, the lack of studio buildings, it's a really interesting discussion. is an MA necessarily the best route? Would you just want to take 20 grand and just live off that money and think really hard about art for 2 years? You know, but it might not be right for everyone.
Yeah.
But the thing that I do think is important is that MAs do enforce a high level of criticality and tautness within practice, and that's not really down to teaching. It's not down to the structure of the course. It's just down to the interaction with other students. It's about that peer group that you build up, and it's people kicking the crap out of your work for 2 years. And it really forces you to take a position, to define that and to teach argument. So that for me is, if you can find another way of producing a structure like that, then go and do it.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, of course.
One of the ways that you could progress your thinking about this and follow through on this and prepare yourself for if you were interested in doing an MA is thinking about the different kinds of activities that happen on an MA and doing as many of them as you can just anyway. So one of the key things about doing an MA is artist talks, where artists come in and talk about what they do, how they do it, why they do it, their career. And they're basically sort of being role models for you. And of course, artists are doing this in all kinds of places all the time. So you can go to artist talks free at museums and at galleries, and if you find all the artist talks that are going on around town for free and just go to them, you're getting a really important part of art school without paying for it. Similarly, you guys know how to have a crit. You can keep making work, and you can get together in crits. You could invite someone who you think would lead a good crit and buy them a boozy meal in exchange for having them run a crit for you. And you could be having crits. So there are various different aspects of the art school experience, getting critical and historical studies, taking on, more art theory. These are all things that you could be doing on your own and should be doing on your own if you're thinking of pursuing an MA anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's a word you just said there. There was a word, a trigger word for me there that you just said, you did brought up earlier, and I'm going to guide it round to Eva. I'm going to say career. When I left college, the idea of a career as an artist was like, that was something at the end of a rainbow. I probably believed it a bit as much as I did in Santa. So, and to continue that, I know that our students we have a very good professional studies unit, but I'm always worried that it's forcing people into doing something that they don't necessarily need to do. How do you find space to become an artist, not necessarily calling it a career?
Well, I think there's a kind of figuring out your lifestyle, which is part of it. So if you can find a way when you finish that you can have a part-time job that can pay for you enough to live and be able to make work, it's like
so
really
I'm going to
practical.
stop you right there and say, yes. Did you have a part-time job?
Yeah.
How did you support yourself?
When I finished studying, I was working part-time as a gallery assistant at the Serpentine Gallery for like 5 years, and it was great, and it was really flexible hours. I met other artists, and I could determine my own hours pretty much. Right. So it allowed for me to have a practice in the other time.
Did you live in that point?
I lived in Holloway in a co-op.
Right.
Yeah.
These are all words that seem kind of archaic to me. I lived in a co-op as well. I had a council house, but yeah, go on.
Yeah. So yeah, rent was fairly cheap, which helped as well. And of course things are getting increasingly difficult in London, for example. But you don't have to live in London.
That's exactly what I was going to go into, actually.
So there's no real need to be living in London.
Right, you say that, but is that
No, I
true?
think that, I mean, I've always lived in London, so I don't know for sure if it's true. But I would have thought so.
I have to say, we all live in London, and we've all lived in London for quite a long time. But
yeah. I think things are changing because London is so much more expensive now. I think there's room to carve out pockets elsewhere in the country. I mean, there's already, I mean, Glasgow is hugely exciting art-wise, and it's a lot cheaper, so why not go there? Or, I mean, and I'm sure there's other cities that have pretty exciting scenes going on too.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when I had a brief life as a gallerist, I know that the Arts Council was shifting all the money first to young galleries, and then they were shifting it all out to places like Nottingham. You know quite a lot of galleries from over there. Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the importance of London for you, and then why you think it would be useful for someone starting out to probably move somewhere else?
I mean, I hate London. I wouldn't be here unless I was like contractually obliged to with the gallery, right? Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't choose to live in a place like this. I've made the decision to have a gallery in London rather than having a gallery in Newcastle, my workplace, or Glasgow. There's pros and cons to both, but I mean, I really regret it. I should have done it in Glasgow. It would have been so much nicer. I'd been happier. I'd have like a nice bicycle and I could ride around in the hill. You know, like quality of life stuff.
The weather's nice.
The weather is. Yeah.
The weather's really bad.
I mean, they're all strategies. I mean, Berlin, Brussels, you know, New York. If you move to New York, I mean, it's each one of these places has its own tone, you know, and that will affect your practice. And so, you know, New York is financially it's one thing, but critically maybe it's not. You know, young artists, it's not as good as Berlin, maybe. And maybe London's a nice mix of the two. I mean, it's worth thinking about this. Like why, you know, don't just do the thing that everyone else is doing. I mean, like you're suggesting, you know, like really think about what your objectives are and what the best way to reach that is.
Also, the art world in London is quite dense now. They're actually coming out as a young graduate. It might be quite hard to make your mark and to be seen, whereas it could be a lot easier somewhere else to kind of get your work having more attention, you know?
And what do you think is the most important thing to establish within the first couple of years of graduating? And I mean that literally from the ground up. You've just left, looking very worried on the front row there. You've just left. What do you think? What's the most important thing?
The most important thing is making sure that your practice stays alive.
Yep.
And that means setting aside the timetabling. What one friend of mine always says, you know, I need the muse to inspire me to work, but you have to train the muse, right? So you have to set up the times where it's really easy just not to be making work. So you have to be, you know, depending on your personality, but most people need to really set aside regular time and money and resources and energy to work on it, or else it just shrivels up, right?
Well, you're talking there as though you're a unitary entity, and for me that you need a community, don't you?
Yeah.
I think you're stuck without a community, and that community has to be supportive in that respect. I think that's one of the great problems about saying, okay, I'm going to move to Glasgow. I live in Bournemouth, I'm going to move to Glasgow. Now, do you know anyone in Glasgow? But you would probably say yes, but you've got to meet some people.
But I disagree. I think the art world is incredibly permeable. Just go to the openings, drink a beer, and after a while you're friends with everyone. It's not difficult, and this idea that it's hard to make these connections, it's not. It's open, it's welcoming, I think, so you can just go.
It was good.
I mean, I didn't know anyone.
Can you just tell me?
But I think, I mean, the thing with community, I mean, I think it's also important to not kind of wait for outside recognition that someone goes, oh, this is okay work, come and show. I mean, community is important with your peers in terms of like do stuff together and put a show on and make it feel meaningful that you're making work, because otherwise it becomes otherwise there's no kind of point in making it unless show it at some point, and if no one is like going, here's an exhibition, then you know you make your own shows.
Yeah, totally agree. It's incredibly important. I mean, no one's going to. You're just demonstrating as well an engagement and an energy that people will pay attention to. So, you know, if no one's inviting you, do it yourself. Yeah.
And it is possible to blaze your own path. I mean, a friend of mine was determined to be a New York artist, but couldn't afford to live in New York, and had someplace free to live in Toronto. So he lived in Toronto, but he didn't go around telling people he lived in Toronto. He made sure that every time there was a kind of cluster of important openings happening in New York, that he was lined up to sleep on somebody's couch that week. And he was a New York artist, and periodically he would, you know, most of the time he was in Toronto, you know, doing all the different kinds of jobs and making work. But he was living in New York at the same time as, well, he was going to all these galleries in New York at the same time as I was living in New York, and he was going to more openings in New York than I was. He was more part of the scene, even though he officially lived somewhere else. So, you know, you get to write your own narrative in terms of how those things work.
Yeah. Dave, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about, because I know that some of the students here are interested in running the gallery. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience of, you had experience of selling, didn't you?
Yeah, but I was a mediocre artist and wanted to understand what an art gallery was. My peer group, none of us knew anyone at the gallery, so I went and worked for a gallery, not because I wanted to, but to try and better understand what one was. And it was like a research trip. And when I got there, the people that I was working for were so moronically, they were just ethically, everything was just wrong. I was disgusted by what I found there. And so it made me immediately go, God, this is what people are doing. Like, this is how it should be, you know? Yeah. And so that made me start to think, well, screw it. I don't want my friends to exhibit with people like this. Yeah. So then it was a real accident.
And then how did you, because there was a point in London round about in sort of late 90s, early what you call notice, where it was possible to do an auction.
Yeah, now you need 200 grand to open a gallery, really. Back then, you could do this whole Werner Herzog thing, you know. You don't have a camera, just steal one, you know. Like and people did, you just blag it, and it's a much, much harder thing to do now.
Why do you think that? Do you think that the London experience that we had is replicated in other places now?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just access to space. Space is the key one, and that's whether it's studios. I mean, you look at what was great about London was this kind of fertile bottom layer to the pyramid, you know, of project spaces, artist-run spaces, like City Racing. Where's City Racing now? They come and go. Jupiter Woods is another good one, but it's the only one in the last couple of years. It's run by 4 or 5 curators from the, I think, Goldsmiths and LCA curating course. You know, they're in South Bournemouth, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's incredibly hard to find these spaces and to find, because there is an audience in them, people will come, they will pay attention. So that's the good thing, that you have an audience, you do something, even if you think no one's watching, people are watching, and it goes in. It's kind of banked, that attention has been banked. And the second time they see it, the third time they see this thing you've done, this self-initiated project or a show or a thing, that all accrues and accumulates. And it works, it does work. But I think I couldn't open a gallery down the same way. I feel very lucky that space now is just incredibly expensive.
So let's talk a little bit about space. Studio, do you have a studio?
Yeah, I do.
How did you find to have a studio? Do you think it's essential for?
It depends on how you live. I mean, now I have 2 kids at home, so I need a studio. Before that, in long periods, I've just worked from my bedroom. So it kind of depends on your practice, like how much space you need for a start to make it what you're doing. I mean, a lot of you are doing photography. You might not need so much actual studio space, possibly. But it also, I mean, for me, it's more important that it's somewhere else. That is I can leave a kind of chaotic home life to have a kind of quiet space. So it's about it's not so much about space as mental space. Yeah.
Because you've just moved to a much bigger space. Can you tell us a little bit about the reason behind that?
So we just moved to a large space. It's in Haggerston, sort of, the back of Dalston. And
what's it precisely? 300. Because they're going to want to visit now. Now that we've met you.
There's this thing called the internet, and all information is on
Kingston Road.
So it's on Kingston Road, further up. And the logic behind it is that rather than moving to central London, where we have a very small space, we've got a big space, the in-store pictures look great, contemporary art daily, JPEGs fly around the world. It's about that photograph, documentation, right? Because the collectors are, let's say to collectors in London, let's say to collectors in New York, or Toronto, or Belgium, as you know. So it's a conscious decision to have a better looking JPEG.
Yeah.
And as simple as that.
Yeah. I think, the big thing that there's a strange split. There's art. So people make art, and then there's money, and somehow we shouldn't talk about that. There's kind of a split, and I just wanted to ask you, Lucy, about money and what you. Okay, so Adorno, we bring him in. He would say, without commodification of art, we'd be working for churches. What do you think? What part do you think money plays in that world? I know it's an obvious question, but I don't think it is.
Well, my husband is a video artist, and between now and Christmas, he's in a group show in Tokyo, a solo show in London, at a commercial gallery, a solo show in a commercial gallery in LA, and a solo show at a public space in Cardiff. And for this combination of flashy activities, he's being paid. So he's being flown a couple of places. He's having his hotel room paid for in a couple of places. So he gets to feel like a glamorous international art star. But in terms of food on the table, mortgage payment.
Yeah.
So one of the things to think about in art is that making it may be getting to make your work. So, and the question is it important enough to you to make that work, to be willing to dedicate your life to it? Because it's a whole life cycle, a lifestyle. The teaching job my husband has, he wouldn't have if he weren't also an artist. And so, it all ties together. It does have a payoff in some sense.
Yeah.
But he may not, sell an artwork for 3 or 4 years at a time. So, it's very weird talking about money. It makes more sense to talk about kind of an economy, a mixed economy that includes actual paychecks circulating back and forth, but also intangibles, we might call them, of other kinds of satisfaction and fulfillment. Because, the fact that we get to sit around the dinner table and talk about the interesting ideas that we get to think about all day is an incredible luxury. That we're not working in a call center is amazing. And we get to have, really rich lives in a lot of ways. But, and there certainly are people who are selling photographs for hundreds of thousands of pounds, millions of pounds at a pop. But there aren't very many of those people. So it's just important to, if you want to be one of those people, you better start being really, really strategic about how to make that happen. But otherwise, you might sort of think about what kinds of things you want to be getting out of it. Does that make sense as an answer?
Eva, what do you...
Yeah, I just think that money cannot be your aim when you go into doing art. Because it's just not the right way to reach money. There's so many better ways. So, So it seems like a kind of a wrong step. So you've got to go in it for all those reasons that Lucy was talking about having an interesting and rich life, and because you have a need to make your work. And you have to, one can start to think a lot about what you should be doing for your professional career and what kinds of things you should be doing. But in the end, I think what you really have to do is focus on your work and make good work. And that kind of will lead to success within your work. Yeah.
And Dave, I mean, normally there's this strange idea that having a gallery is about money, but in your case, I don't think it is.
Well, I mean, money is a tool with which you can use to make more and better art. It's not the end point of art, it's this kind of stage on the way to your practice. So, I mean, like, I'm very commercial. I have to be commercial in order that the artists that we represent don't have to be, They just need to make I'm going to sell the video work or whatever. I don't want them to think about that for a second, I want them to make the most unsaleable thing they can, or just the best work they can. And then I'll worry about that problem for them. So, I mean, I think also using words like career is quite interesting and potentially hazardous, because if you say career, you're setting yourself up against, like a civil servant or something, this progression and this idea that you're getting paid to do something, and that this will develop and grow. And it's not what you're doing. You're producing an art practice, and to try and parallel that with the business world or just normal life, mortgages and lawnmowers and all those kind of things, right? It's not going to fit.
Yeah.
So I think don't think about your career. Think about, is this work meaningful? And ultimately, if you make wonderful, insightful, profound, amazing art, people will fund you, whether that's through buying the work, through supporting you in residencies, through just giving you money to make work, which is what some people will do. I'll pay for your studio for a year, we just want to support you. So ultimately, it's just down to content, quality and meaning, and then that will generate the means of production.
I just wanted to ask you very quickly, because it's, I guess for a lot of people, collectors are a bit of a mystery. I just want, because there's a Dave Hickey talks about Picasso, and he said that Picasso started off painting these, blue and pink, romantic paintings, and then he realised that the American expats were interested in showing how they could, they could take something really difficult, and they were actually showing off this kind of work. So he's very strategic in making cubist works, etc. I just want to ask you a little bit about what draws collectors to the gallery. What is it that they're interested in?
I have absolutely no idea what people buy art. Not a clue. Each collector has their own motivation. It's just, I have no clue. It's weird. It's like a disease or something that they get and they can't stop, and I don't really know why. I mean, if my understanding of an artwork isn't dependent on whether I own it or not, you look at it, enjoy it, you don't have to own it. So, I don't know why they do it. We just accept that they do, and
but there's no point second guessing that, is there?
No, you can't predict what someone's going to like, and also you shouldn't care whether they like it. You shouldn't care whether collectors are the last people that you should think that you should be concerned about whether they like your work or not. So, like, you should compete with critics. Collectors are like, yeah, great. Can you bigger? You're not going to get anything from them. So again, they're a tool. Collectors are a tool, and they archive the work. Maybe they preserve it for you, but they're not the end point.
Okay, social media, networking. Once the fellas all dread, or some people really enjoy it. I don't know. I spend a lot of time on Facebook looking at car parks. Anyway, Eva, what do you feel about that? Has it helped you? Has it hindered you? Or do you...
I think keeping people up to date with what you're doing is really useful. and helpful. And I think since I finished studying, I always kind of collected people's email addresses, and when I did a show or a couple of times a year, I'd send out a friendly email, not like an overly professionalized one, saying, you know, what the kind of things I was up to, and with links where they could look at my work further or whatever. And I think that has been incredibly useful, because it means that tons of people just get a little reminder about what I'm up to every now and again, and see new work that I'm making, and often it's like suddenly someone contacts me that I haven't spoken to for 10 years and says, oh, I'm curating this show and I saw your new work and it would really fit into that. And that's kind of the way things happen. So I think it's incredibly useful to keep people informed, however you do that, via email or Facebook or whatever. Yeah.
We haven't really talked about galleries, we've talked about the artist. I haven't really talked about the lecturer, the teacher. And I'm wondering if you could, sorry to cut off the social media thing, but I just kind of thought that we'll come back to it. I just wondered if you could talk me through a little bit about how you sort of strategised that, and that's essentially one thing.
Well, some people go into teaching because they burn to teach. Some people go into art writing because they burn to write. And some people go into teaching and writing to make a living in the orbit of art. And that's what I did. I was like, oh, my day job will be teaching in an art school. And I'll write some bits on the side to help survive. It has worked for that, but it's also sort of basically almost completely swallowed me up as an artist, so that my artistic production is down to a little trickle. But it is a really, both teaching and writing are really satisfying, can be really satisfying kinds of work that can keep your art brain ticking over, and can also be really useful elements of the kind of patchwork career that most of you are going to end up having, a sort of portfolio of activities that you survive on, but that also all feed each other. So one of the things I was going to say in follow-up to the social media question was, if you have a voice, use it. If you're comfortable writing about photography, talking about photography, just find ways to be doing that on a regular basis and getting it out. And whether it's tweets, whether it's a blog, whether it's writing for established magazines, or starting a publication of some kind, or collaborating with friends, writing catalog essays for friends, these can all be strands that will weave together to make a rope you can actually hold on to. Because I can't tell you the number of times where the 50 pounds I got for writing some review, or the 100 pounds I got for giving some lecture, meant the difference between, having enough to eat and not. And again, it's like making work. Once in my life, someone paid me 1,000 euros to speak for 20 minutes because I was giving a talk at a bank. But usually the sums are very small. But you do enough of these things, and the end of the month comes, and you can survive. So, but they're all things like writing may make you really anxious, but it may be that if you wrote for a deadline half a dozen times, you get over that anxiety and start feeling much more confident and comfortable doing it. So if it's one of the things you could be doing, I recommend that you do.
And how useful is social media for you, Dave, but also for people who are interested in what you do?
It's incredibly important, because we set up with no network. If you don't have, but everyone's got a website. It's incredibly important. If you don't have that, I wasn't born with relationships with collectors and curators, and all that stuff has to be. It's just part of the strategy of doing it. I hate to hate having to do it, but it's, yeah, it's whatever you're most comfortable with. And I think writing is incredibly important, and as a strategy for engaging with people. Like, the amount of times I've met someone because they reviewed one of our shows. You know, if you want to go meet someone, review their show. I mean, they've got to be nice to you, right? Because you're going to do it. Yeah, so like, just variety.
Listen, I think we're all wilting a little bit, so I'd like to invite a couple of questions from the floor, if there are any. Don't get any questions. What? You must have a question. No? We're all too hot? If you don't have any questions, I'd just like each panel member just to say how you would advise your younger self, not your older, but how would you advise your younger self just leaving a degree? Who wants to go first?
Nobody can make you stop making your work except you. So the thing to do is to just keep doing it, because if you make things and send them out into the world, people will respond to them. And I mean, my role model is John Steziker. I got my job at Royal College because John Steziker, aged about, I don't know, 68 at the time, became an art star and said, I've been making this work steadily since I was 19, and now it's really cooking. Charles Saatchi has just bought a whole room full. You know, I'm going to pack in my day job and be an art star now. So his position was vacated, and I got it, and so, you know, I've got another, 20 years to go, and then hopefully, because if you make the work and send it out there, you just never know, but that's the only way it's going to happen. So just don't let any rejection or discouragement from anybody else ever stop you, because if you've got the vision, the world may come around to meet it, even if it's not the hottest thing this season. Who wants to be the hottest thing this season? Because then there's no way you're going to be the hottest thing next season.
Not the hottest thing this season. What would you say to yourself?
I don't know what I would say to myself, but I suppose following on from that a bit is to kind of not think too strategically about your work at all, which is what this discussion is all about, but to try to remember to think about it in a quite intuitive way so that you're in touch with what really matters in the work and why you're making it in the first place, and not lose sight of that. And it's you see, like you were saying, you see fashions in art, it's quite strange, and to not try to follow on to that and to make work that looks like someone else's work and stuff, because it doesn't work out in the end. You've got to kind of cut through that. So, yeah.
Yeah, boringly, I'm just going to agree with you. I wish I hadn't stopped making art. If you just whatever you do, just don't stop. Even if it's awful and everyone tells you it's awful, just keep doing it. Because if you stop, then you definitely don't have any. So,
I'd just like to thank our panelists. I think that was great. You sure you don't have any questions? Great. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your attention. Shall we stick it online, the discussion? It'll be on the SPRAWL website. Fantastic. Thanks very much.